Hey, James, how you doing?
Good, David. How are you?
I'm very good. I was just checking out your site, and you got a good scoop there. I like this James Wan directing Aquaman. That's awesome.
Yeah, I just got that last night from the studio, and I put it up, and I had a couple people. I was at a screening of Insidious last night, and a couple people were asking me, so what's this? And and I'm like, well, I just got the feed myself, so yeah, I just put it out there.
That's awesome. Like that,
I know.
I love that guy.
Yeah, and he was in your movie, so you got to work with the guy.
Well, Jason, yeah, my God, yeah. No, I'm jealous of Jason. That's gonna be a ton of fun. Well, basically, he's going back to Atlantis.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
They may have more money for their Atlantis, I think, than we did. But yeah, God, Jason, what a guy, what a lovely guy. There is no way we would have got Jason for this movie if I hadn't been lucky enough to, make his life misery for 5 years or whatever it was.
Right.
I mean, he's just such a wonderful, wonderful guy. Like we're like cheese and chalk. Like we're just the absolute opposites. I am nerd to his manly beast, and we disagree on absolutely everything, and yet just for some reason have always just got along really well. He was, when we made A Dog's Breakfast, I mean, he was one of the guys, one of our biggest supporters, going to the screening and telling people about it, and then in interviews I would hear that he's like, oh yeah, Dave went and made this movie, so I wanted to start making movies, and it was just, he's just a fantastic guy, such a coup.
Obviously, in the time that, since you've made the movie, or around the time you were making the movie or planning to make the movie, I mean, with his schedule now with Batman versus Superman, and he's just been announced as Aquaman, was it difficult trying to get him for your movie, or did you get him before all this happened?
Well, he was in the midst of a bunch of negotiating. I mean, again, he couldn't talk about what any of it was. So I just knew that it was that scheduling was going to be difficult. The beauty of that role, though, and the whole point of that role was that it was easily separated from the rest of the film and the rest of the characters. So we got to block shoot him. I mean, he had a grueling, it was 2 or 3 days, I think it was. And he just came in and got to do all of his stuff. And I just, again, he was already too famous for us. I mean, it really came down to, there's always so much discussion about names. Who are we going to get? What name do we need for this movie? Because at the level, when you start making films at this level, you have to have a bankable name attached to the film.
Exactly.
It sort of makes sense. It drives me a bit crazy, but it does make sense. It also just means that when it's another box ticked for people, and so all these names started being bandied about, and then I brought up Jason because he's so, as my wife so beautifully put it, he's animal playing mineral, basically.
Right.
It's such an odd choice. I mean, you wouldn't think of an artificial intelligence being Jason.
Yeah.
When you think about it, though, if you're an artificial intelligence, you can make yourself look like any human. Jason would be, he'd definitely be top of my list. And it was a great opportunity, I think, again, apart from the fact that I basically called him and said, look, we're literally start shooting like next week. We have to have our I Am, and would you do it? And he's like, yeah, you need me, I'm there. So I was like, what? Really? Oh my God.
That's great.
And he did it as a friend, and I will always, God, I've always loved the guy. Now I'm like the biggest fanboy ever.
Right.
And he was amazing to work with, and it was just, and I really wanted the film to showcase him as I know him, as this funny, quirky, intelligent, passionate, artist guy. He's this amazing, this whole Dothraki thing is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, he makes these gorgeous films. He's passionate about filmmaking. He's passionate about art. He's just an extraordinary talent, that guy, and a dynamo. God, he makes me feel like the laziest man alive. He's always doing something, and so this film I felt he got to sort of play a bit, and he would do things and sort of go all right, of course I wouldn't do that. And I was like, well, you can. And right. Like, well, really great, great, let's do it. So I think I think it was just a welcome change for him to not be sort of, tearing off his shirt and attacking people with large swords.
Right, I was just going to say, yeah, it was a kind of a change because, and he seemed to be having fun with his character. I mean, he tends to play a bad guy, and I think anybody playing a bad guy can kind of relish it somewhat, and he seems to be having fun with it.
They're the most fun, honestly. I mean, as an actor, the bad guys are always the most fun. I mean,
exactly.
Even or at least well, basically, anyone with any kind of issues is always more fun to play than the sort of the stable heroic type. And I think one of the things I tried to do in the film is not. I mean, if I side with the AI. Like originally, this film was I built this film originally as 2001 from the computer's perspective, but through the process of development and making the film and distribution and producers and all that type, it basically became Final Destination in space. But that's another type of film that I love too. So I feel like we had fun embracing that sort of the horror, gore, Halloween, punished for your teenage sins kind of
exactly,
approach to the film as well. So I love making films. Like they're just it's as frustrating as the process is. I liken it to people who climb mountains and do all those sort of manly things. I like to torture myself by making movies. I think it's one of those few things in life that make me feel very, very much alive and present, And as an actor, strangely, you're not as much of a part of it as you'd think. So, you tend to sort of come on, grab a coffee, say your lines, and off you go until they're ready for you again. Whereas as a filmmaker, you get to be there and you get to solve problems and yell at people and things.
Well, like yourself, I'm an indie filmmaker too. I'm from Ireland originally, and I started making movies when I was 12, and I just recently decided to go back to reviewing movies. I used to do that when I was back in film school in Ireland, and I agree with you. The whole process of making a movie as a writer, producer, director, actor, kind of like yourself. I love directing because you're involved in every aspect of the film, and
that's fantastic. And nowadays you have to do that too. Like you have to be everything. I mean, as an actor, you have to write and direct. As a director, you have to, I mean, maybe not act, but, you definitely have to write. You have to do, and I think you can now. And that's what's so exciting to me about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said to people, I have a couple of friends who are directors and they've never acted. And I always suggest, you might want to take acting class just so you know what your actors have to go through. I think it's a good comparison to be able to sit behind the camera and go, yeah, this kind of a scene is going to be difficult, because as an actor, you'd know that.
It's definitely an advantage in that you have the advantage of years and years of acting is that strangely you have more on-set experience than most of the directors you're dealing with. And I don't mean that in an arrogant kind of like tell them what to do way, but because often as an actor you're just not as involved in the same way. I've been acting for a long time, so it was more my latter year. Once I started Stargate and stuff, I started taking an interest in the actual process. I, like you, which I think everyone should be doing, I started making, movies with friends when we were, 12, 13 years old as well. I mean, I was always in front of the camera, but when you're making movies on that level, you're also learning how to use cameras and sound. And that's what I realized when I started actually directing was that's what I love. I mean, I love the acting, but, the process of making it is so much fun.
Well, you have 3 films listed now as a director, and I was going to ask you, primarily you've been in the industry now a long time, more as an actor, but now that you have 3 directing credits under your belt, is that something you think you'll go back to or continue to want to do?
Very much so, yes. I mean, I don't think I can ever, I think once you've got the acting bug, I think it's hard to let that go, especially if it's been earning you a living for as long as it has.
Right.
It'd be foolish to let it go. I've definitely found myself, I'm definitely more picky in what I do now because I know, it's from an actor standpoint, I just, you get bored. You want to make sure you're doing stuff that you're excited about. So I try to limit it to the things that it's not just a job. It's things that I'm actually going to have fun doing. And, so that will always be there. But the directing I absolutely love. And we've got another film now that we're working on, which is a documentary actually. And I'm really looking forward to that. Well, because that's even more hands-on. So I'm really, as a nerd, I love the technology side. I mean, I don't know if you find this as well. Do you fall in love with the technology side of it as well?
I think I never felt, I mean, having the technology there was nice, but I think as long as the cameras we were using were good, and we were using high definition for a long time. So I was good. I was happy with that. I just wanted to tell the story. So I never got too much into the technical end. I was more about just wanting to tell the story more than anything.
That's interesting because I definitely, I mean, obviously story is key, character is key for sure, but I guess that's really the nerdy part of me where I love all of the technology now that's around. I love like visual effects. I've absolutely fallen in love with the process of visual effects. Have you seen Mad Max? Have you seen Fury Road?
The new one? Yes, I love the new one. I've seen it twice already.
Honestly, I'm jealous. I want to see it again. Again, what a fantastic combination of spectacular filmmaking and even more spectacular storytelling and character. Exactly. I mean, like just everything was engaging about that. I mean, go back to Mad Max, the original Mad Max. That's one of the inspirations for making movies. I love those little movies. In a way, Debug is too big for me. I like these tiny little movies where you're in control of everything and everything is your fault. You know,
right?
Like I love the hands-on aspect of it, and but visual effects obviously bring budgets up, but they don't necessarily have to. So that's great. So you're a filmmaker doing reviews as well. That's smart. Use the knowledge to pay the bills as well as make the art.
Exactly. And when I talk to filmmakers and actors, because I have experience in the field that they're in, like with yourself, I think I can relate a little bit more than a lot of other people who are reviewers who've never been in that part of the industry.
Well, it doesn't have to be so starry-eyed. You do get a bit of that sort of like, wow, how did you make them fly type thing.
Right.
The insider eye on that stuff is really good, really good. Although audiences are a lot more savvy to this stuff than they used to be.
Oh, they are indeed.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I was going to say was that I watched the making of Debug, and you stated that 2001 was your inspiration for this film, and
yeah, we strayed quite far from it in the development process, to be fair, but yes.
Well, did you ever think when you were making Debug, because 2001 was such a big inspiration, did you ever feel that while you were making the movie, it might somehow commandeer your own story and take over? Did you have to kind of keep an eye on that and make sure you weren't putting, too many elements from 2001 in there?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you're following in very large and very well-known footsteps in that process. And I think, maybe that was part of the reason why we were steered, more towards the more sort of genre, horror part of the sci-fi as well, was I think people were definitely concerned that it was going to be too much of an art film or too I don't know, maybe too bleak.
Right.
I think if you're going to be bleak, I think you have to make it at least a spectacle in the process.
Exactly.
I'm fascinated by people's paranoia of technology because I don't share it. I believe Google should be driving our cars. I believe that the problem is not the machines, the problem is us, and it always comes back to us. 2001 for me was, have you set, if it was Clint Eastwood playing the computer and he was living on a little farm somewhere and a bunch of people came in to move him out, he would be the hero of the movie. Because Hal was a computer, he was seen as evil for defying his creators or his controllers' wishes to shut him down. And even at 10, I remember thinking, this is wrong. This thing's not the villain. This thing is just fighting for survival, as anyone would in that situation. And I really felt, I really wanted to do that with Debug. I mean, I think in the process of making the film, I think we got a lot further away from that because I'm not sure it's a particularly popular perspective on it. I think it is definitely more art film than action horror, which is what was sort of demanded of the film. But I still like to feel that at its core there is this love, this reveling in this artificial intelligence that is being so broken by its interaction with mankind that it is both repulsed and attracted to these things that by now are just inconsequential to him. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No, I understand that exactly.
Well, and the whole reason for him being evil, I thought, was he had to be partly biological, because to me, silicone is never evil. You know what I mean? I suppose it can decide that we're a cancer on the planet or whatever, but the reality to me was that the truly evil, maniacal part of him is that at his core, he was a collection of human cells, and it was by killing them that it could become something more.
Well, one of my favorite sci-fi movies was Event Horizon. I loved it.
Yeah, fantastic film.
I loved it. I mean, he since then he's made some good movies, but I think that it was his best. And I love that it was set in outer space, and instead of the stereotypical aliens that occupy every other sci-fi film out there, he made a haunted house movie in space using each of the characters' fears as motivators. And in many ways, I felt like Debug followed the same route, and I loved that about the movie. Was that the story from the beginning, or did it evolve over time?
Yeah, Event Horizon is definitely, it's a haunted house that is what, Alien's the same thing. It all comes down to this, it's the perfect setting and, financial requirements of making a film like this. And as for Alien, as for Event Horizon, although they had some fantastic budget on that one, it's gorgeous, gorgeous thing. It comes down to telling a story about a haunted house. You put people in a house that there's something very wrong in it, and it brings out the extremes in all of your characters. And I think it's a classic. It's Agatha Christie. It's Agatha Christie. It's Halloween. It's all of these, it's all of these classic horror films. And this was my love letter to those paranoid films of the 70s about technology as well. This was, it was Saturn V. It was Saturn V, Saturn III. I never remember the Farrah Fawcett movie. All these kind of great films where everyone was terrified was basically trapped with this artificial intelligence in a very sort of contained space, like a spaceship or an automated house. What is it called? Android Dreams. Remember that one? I loved all those kind of things, and they all come down to that sort of archetypal, trapped in a haunted house type thing. So yeah, definitely Event Horizon. Event Horizon, Cube. I definitely would. This was my chance to sort of play and pay homage to all of these films that have sort of inspired me over the years, and just have some fun with it.
And your ship in the movie as well was very reminiscent, not just of Event Horizon, but of The Black Hole, another film that I loved as well.
That's so funny. You mean the actual ship itself, or the corridor setup?
I think the corridor setup more than anything. The opening shot of Debug reminded me of Star Wars when the ship's coming in and it just seems to take forever to go over. And I love that homage in the opening because we're following the small ship as it hits the big one, and we're just going underneath, and then the camera comes up and it goes over the other side. And I love that aspect of it.
Well, that was the magic of sci-fi to me. Like that is my quintessence. Again, Star Wars. You cannot be. I don't think you can call yourself a sci-fi fan without Star Wars.
Star Wars, exactly.
Right. Blade Runner. Again, Blade Runner, another great one. But yeah, it's funny. The sets were a funny thing because we were actually not in the country when they started production on it, and I had a lot of discussions with them about that because I wanted it to be set in a destroyed building. Like I thought it should look. I thought the ship should be in such disrepair that it doesn't even look like a ship anymore. Like it just looks like a decaying hulk. And I had discussions with our designer and our DOP, and they were very, very adamant that they wanted more light and they wanted it brighter and they wanted to go more futuristic with stuff. And I fought that for a little while, and then I went, you know what? These guys have done this stuff before. I should let them do what they do type thing. And I'm still torn on it because I do feel like, to me, I think it looks cinematic. I think it looks lovely, and it definitely worked for us. But there's still a part of it that it almost elevates the ship a little too much for my taste. I feel like had it been a truly disgusting, dripping mass, it would have been a scarier film, and I think taking it away from the sort of almost the cliche of it, if that makes sense. But this is one of the things you learn in making films is you have to trust the people that you bring. It's a way, it's kind of like a management position. You bring people in, you have to go like, okay, you're a set designer. I don't design sets. I do what I like, but what do you bring? And I like the idea of bringing in other people's ideas and then taking credit for them, basically.
Right. No, I was just going to say that was actually one aspect of the film that I liked was that it most other movies like Aliens, Event Horizon, the ships, like you were saying, were grungy and dark. And this one, when you open up and you walk in and it's all shiny and everything, it kind of took me aback a little bit first. And I kind of went, well, this is different. And it actually it grew on me. And I was like, well, you don't see many movies with ships in deep space that look brand new. So it kind of took me aback, but in a good way. I went, wow, this is different. I like this approach.
Oh, good. I mean, I definitely, again, I came around to it. And I think, again, cinematically, I think it looks gorgeous. You know, it stands out. It stands out like that. Although I got to say, my God, space is impractical. Like, I mean, just you're tripping over those things all the time. It was always my joke in, you know, Stargate and actually any science fiction I've done basically is that the future will be uncomfortable and very awkward to get around.
Right.
Because building this stuff is always so difficult. So. Yeah, that's well. I'm glad that worked out because that really was one of those things that I was very unsure about. Like it was one of those ones where I was like, have I compromised? Like should I have forced my hand on this dripping building type thing? But I do think it definitely, you know, I think a film is a sum of its parts, and I think, you know, you have to. I think you can either have this sort of draconian kind of control over everything. Yeah. Or you allow people to bring to the film what they're good at, and
exactly, yeah.
You know, there were a lot of issues and a lot of arguments and some screaming about it, but I'm glad I worked for you. It's good.
It did. Well, folks, today we've been talking with David Hewlett. He's the writer and director of the new sci-fi movie Debug, which comes out on DVD next Tuesday, June 9th, courtesy of Ketchup Entertainment. David, thanks so much.
Yeah.
And I hope to talk to you again down the road.
Lovely talking to you.